Okay, guys, and welcome to tonight's show. We are live with Jack, aka Chronically Living CD, and you can find him on Instagram. So, without further ado, Jack, do you want to just introduce yourself to the guys at home?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Jack. Got Crohn's disease. Had Crohn's disease for about 4 to 5 years now. 24. Um, yeah, I'm based over in Norwich area.
That's amazing. So, Jack, if you could just talk to me about your life prior to being diagnosed with Crohn's disease, like what were you up to and how were you at that point?
I think the question's what wasn't I up to be honest. I had a very active, very sporting life before I was diagnosed. When I was younger, I used to do so many sports. Played rugby for about 7, 8 years. When I was even younger, I used to do gymnastics. I done swimming for counties. God, there was loads of things that I'd done. Very sporty, very physically active. Um, and then sort of teens wise, just the usual school. But then sort of early college days, late high school, that's when my sort of symptoms started to arise really. Um, but yeah, my life before my diagnosis was a very stress-free one, to say the least. Very different to what it is now.
And when and how were you diagnosed?
Um, I was diagnosed around sort of late 16, early 17 years of age, I believe. I had sort of persistent symptoms that obviously I had no idea was relating to Crohn's because I had absolutely no idea it was even a thing. There's no sort of family history of it or anything like that. Luckily, it was my mum that sort of figured it out. She's a nurse and she's been a nurse for a long time in mental health. Um, and I was quite sort of full of anxiety. He was always used to hate going to doctors and everything like that. But I just, had persistent symptoms, as they all come, loose stools, blood, mucus, all the bells and whistles really. Until one day she literally grabbed me and took me down to the doctors. And then that was it. That was then the start of my journey of getting diagnosed, which took about a year and a half to fully get diagnosed. First of all, it was just a misdiagnosis of just simple IBD. Um, but because it was so sort of persistent in the same area, we was adamant that it was something more acute than that. Um, and eventually, then I did get my diagnosis toward the end for Crohn's disease.
That is amazing. So it was all down to your mum actually getting you out the door and getting yourself actually in front of a doctor.
Yeah, yeah, it was. I was too anxious to do anything about it.
So for you, what's actually changed then for you since being diagnosed?
So lifestyle, lifestyle massively has changed. Um, there's a lot of sort of lifestyle choices that you do have to sort of stop, as they say. My sports is no longer really. I don't have that sort of energy anymore to be able to physically calculate the amount of sports that I used to do in comparison to now. I get up in the morning and by the time I've had a shower, I'm exhausted. I just want to get back into bed. So like my lifestyle has definitely changed the most dramatically.
And what would you say then, if to someone who's newly diagnosed, like what advice would you give to someone who's going through that now, or perhaps not even diagnosed, just experiencing symptoms?
I mean, there's a lot of things that we could all sit here and say. I mean, my main sort of top three. Um, definitely have some patience. Patience is very key with this. Um, you're not always going to find out what's wrong straight away. Um, it never happens. And anyone that I've ever spoke to, it's always been a long drawing window of trying to get diagnosed. So definitely be patient. And don't stress as well. That is a big benefactor of Crohn's. And I think that anyone that has any sort of stomach issues along them lines will always tell you that stress is a mass indicator. And anytime I'm stressed, I know that my body's stressed. That is one of the key things that massively affects me. And a third one, I'd say, if you're on that sort of borderline of getting diagnosed, and you feel that it's not the right diagnosis, and you feel that it may be something more, push it, push it. If you feel like your doctor or your nurse or your GP isn't doing enough, then just keep pushing it, because I say that's exactly what happened to me. I was misdiagnosed, and we kept pushing it, and then eventually I got the correct diagnosis after a period of time.
Do you know what the delay was in getting your diagnosis?
I honestly don't really know massively what the delay is. I think it's just appointments after appointments. It's never as if you go in and you have an appointment. Whenever they book another appointment, it's always going to be, a month, 2 months down the line until you get to see anyone, because there's always just such a backlog with things like this. But I don't know if that's anything specifically local to where you live, or if it is more of a widespread thing. I wouldn't 100% know. But specifically to my sort of area, it just takes ages to see anyone about this sort of specific thing. I don't know if it's that there's not as many people specialised in that sort of area. I've spoke to people and their gastros and their IBD nurses are absolutely spot on with things. And then you speak to some other people, and I know someone that doesn't even have an IBD nurse, because their hospital is underfunded, and they can't afford it. So I think it may be, specific to areas of where people are.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the biggest frustrations, I think, for a lot of people, is that actual diagnosis piece. So many people do have a difficult journey to actually getting the diagnosis, which is, but we can all understand that to a certain degree, particularly once we've had the disease for a while, because it is so complex and there's so many other things that are potentially less life impacting that it could be. So I think it's a hard one for the doctors, but it's exceptionally hard, I think, for us going through it. The number of people that I've spoken to, spending weeks and months passing blood and stuff into their toilets and being doubled over with pain and barely able to go out their front door. It's a really difficult disease. So what, for you, like when you're having your difficult days with the disease, what sort of stuff gets you through? What inspires you to get up and go? And are you able to get up and go?
Work, because I have no choice. No, my biggest inspiration is definitely my little boy now. He's now 4 months old, and he's a big impact on everything that I do now. Everything's sort of not all about what I need anymore. I have a really supportive bubble around me with my family as well, and my partner. And I think that I have to stay strong, not only for me, but for other people as well. Because being a typical bloke, I don't like showing my pain to people. I don't like to let other people know that I'm struggling. I just try and sort of just, get my head down and crack on with it. But I am very outspoken with things. But most of the time, I do just, my close people, I sort of not push away, but just enclose a little bit more, which is ironic because I'd happily tell a stranger that I'm on the point of breaking, but with my close family, I'm a lot more reserved, because I like to stay strong and let them know that I'm doing all right, sort of thing.
That's really interesting. So what is it that makes you feel the need to be more closed to your near and dearest?
I don't know. I honestly, I don't know. It should obviously be the complete opposite way, really. But I just, I don't know. I think it's just a sense of I want to just show them that I am okay, that I am coping all right. Um, and as I say, I have to stay strong. My mum, bless her, she, got me essentially got me this diagnosis, and she hasn't always had the best news for herself. She's got sort of fibro, so which is another sort of invisible illness. So she has her struggles quite a lot, quite largely actually. So I like to stay strong for her mainly, because I know if it wasn't for me, she probably wouldn't have been able to do most of the things that she's done. So I do just sort of mainly try and just, keep my chin up for her, just because we just sort of bounce off each other really. And I know she does the exact same for me as well. So,
Yeah, no, it's like the people around us, particularly within our sort of support bubbles, like our parents and our partners, they are a huge part when it comes to actually helping us cope with all the things that are happening. And I think we do. You can take it for granted sometimes, and I think having a disease like Crohn's disease or fibromyalgia really makes you appreciate those relationships so much
yeah,
more than I think if you were just to be normal and healthy. Not that I'm saying people that are normal and healthy don't appreciate the relationships they have with those around them. I'm sure they do.
yeah.
But yeah, it's just one of those things that I think because you're almost in fear that you could lose it.
Mm, yeah.
So it makes it that much more real, I guess. We've got a bit about you and what keeps you going and all the people that are around you. What about your own sort of mental health? What sort of things do you do to look after your own mental health? And has having a Crohn's disease diagnosis made you struggle at all? With like, because a lot of times we end up with getting surgery and, we have massive changes to our physiology that we've got to adapt to. And I'm just wondering, how has that affected you and what things have you found to help cope with it?
My mental health was affected largely, with regarding to Crohn's. It's a funny story actually with that because I was due to go to Australia and Thailand for 2 years. I was meant to go traveling there because I wasn't in the best sort of state of mind. I was getting fed up of being at home, and I was getting fed up, with my illness. And this was before I was on biomedics and everything. This was just when I was on tablet form. And I just wanted to get away. I just wanted to go and travel and see the world. Um, and then I think it was about a month before I was meant to travel. I ended up in hospital, um, with a severe flare. And that's when my gastro then told me that I would be needing surgery. Um, and basically, he would declare me unfit to travel. Um, so that just crashed everything for me because I'd been waiting so long to get away from, you know, being not at home, but just everything and issues. And I just wanted to sort of go be a lone wanderer for a bit and just get away from everything. And when he said that I was basically going to need surgery and I wasn't fit to travel, I was just smashed. That really blew a hole in me, to be honest. And it
Yeah,
wasn't
and it's
necessarily the surgery; it was just the fact that I couldn't get traveling. And that hit me quite bad.
I mean, and that's a big, that's a lot of wind to take out of your sails. Like telling someone the best of times that they can't go on holiday, but telling them in that manner and, going through everything you're going
Yeah,
through, as well as having all these medical situations happening, and then for the doctor to try and go, I'm sorry, but you're
yeah.
not fit to travel and surgery. That's got to be a big, big hit. So what was your bounce back like? How long did it take you? Did you understand what was happening to you? Did you feel that you were struggling mindset wise, or was there anything obvious to you at that time?
Yeah, I mean, I knew I was ill. I've always known that I was ill, but I don't think I actually realised the severity of how ill I was. And I was, after a while, he told me I was fit to travel, broke down in tears. I think half the ward heard me, crying and screaming like, "No, I need to go, I need to go." Um, but I slept on it, and I come around the next day, and I was like, "Look, you know what? At the end of the day, at least hopefully this surgery might put me somewhere on track." And then I was more positive about it, and then they booked me in through for emergency surgery, which even still took a few months to get me in. Um, but yeah, so I mean, the mental health side of things, it, you can't have a stigma about it if you have any sort of issues going on in this area. Um, for serotonin, serotonin's your happy chemical that makes you happy and fights off your sort of depressions. And 80 to 90% of serotonin is stored in your bowels and stored in your gut. It's only like about 10% that's stored up in your head. And if you're having issues, down here, your serotonin levels are going to be affected. And I personally always think that mental health and Crohn's are always going to come cohort together, whether it be positively or negatively. They're always going to be fighting at each other, regardless.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely something for us to all sort of bear in mind. Like, it's difficult, and a lot of the things that will impact you most are going to be psychological, like how you feel the world maybe views you, or how you maybe view the world, your own interpretation of lots of different things, because of the impact potentially of not being able to socialize how you normally would, or changes to plans at a moment's notice. And it may mean
Yeah,
that you have changes within your friends' circles, and how you interpret that is going to be different for every single person, but it can be significantly damaging, I think, if taken in a certain way, in a certain line, without considering that this is just normal for where you are, and there are
yeah,
people out there that still will appreciate you. And that brings me on to like talking about your WhatsApp group, and this is where I kind of really first started leading into you, and I messaged you almost instantly as soon as I seen the post, to chat about it and see like what is it that you're trying to do, and what's the drive behind this. So without further ado on that question, so what is it about WhatsApp, and what's the drive that made you decide that this is what we need within our community, and what are your hopes for it?
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of influx on social media about Crohn's, etc., and all this and all that. Um, and I always find that whenever people are asking for advice or help on things, it always seems to be publicly on social media. You have like the Crohn's and Colitis forum, and that's just a page on Facebook, where people publicly put their issues and their questions on, for a lot of people to see. Um, and I felt that we probably need something more personal, something more private, and something more secure, um, because it might be that they're asking the wrong question on what they actually want to ask, and might just be a bit sort of deterred by, it's public. And I really had a drive. I'm like, there must be something that we can do to have that more physical, secured, personal approach to it, um, just to help people, not specifically about, you know, questions that they want to ask, just day to day life of what we go through. Sometimes, as I say, people like me, we keep a lot of enclosed things from our personal lives and our close ones, and it might just be that we just need to talk to someone that we barely know that well, that we're probably never ever going to see their face, but we just know that that person behind that phone is, going to be so supportive and understanding because we're all on that same journey. And I really, really feel that, I just thought, well, WhatsApp, you can make groups on WhatsApp, it's all encrypted as well. So it's all going to be private. It's all going to be a personal experience. And I just thought I'll just go for it. And I put a post up on my Instagram, and next thing you know, it was just I did it at the wrong time, so I did it in the evening. And that means I had to stay up so late because everybody was inboxing me, just messaging like, "Can I join the group? Can I join the group?" And it just went crazy. It went honestly crazy, and it's had such a good outcome so far. Considering it's only been live for just over 24 hours now, it's a really good outcome for the early stages that it's in.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's amazing. Like you, I would almost say that it's gone viral, and the sheer fact that it has had such a reception clearly sort of states or clearly shows, in my opinion, that there's a need within our community for something like this.
Mm.
And like for you, what do you envisage that it will be? How do you see it being used?
It's I'm talking big picture here. It is only something minor at the moment, in my eyes. But I see that this could be quite a big stepping stone for something that really is missing out on the market between our community. Um, I really envision that this could be built upon. Talking big picture, it- we could develop some sort of software or some sort of app that's personal to us. Something where it can be just done automatically. We can have rooms. You can select to go in your regions, your countries, your counties, this sort of thing. Just something that can be personal to what that person wants specifically. And I think that that would really not help only the customer experience, but definitely the anxiety and the worry of people who are getting newly diagnosed or who are about to go into surgery for next week. I think that things like that can really help, and it's something that won't be from doctors and nurses and people who only see a medical side of things. It's from people who are going through this and have been going through this, and I think that way it's a lot more comforting, than having a doctor or a nurse talk to you, someone that's there and that is 100% behind you and on your side, and isn't going to question anything that you ask.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the key things. Is like it's almost like an instantaneous response. I should imagine.
Yeah,
I mean, what's it been
yeah,
like at the minute? You've gone through the first 24 hours of
yeah.
storming and norming. Like, what has the group been like in its initial stages? What's the chat been like?
Honestly, it's been absolutely crazy. That last night when I sort of initially set it up, it was absolutely bonkers. It blew up. I was adding people from left, right, and centre, um, and the chat was just crazy. It was so hard to keep up. You put your phone down for 5, 10 minutes, and like there's be 70, 80 messages on there, and you're like, I can't keep up with this. Like we're gonna have to do something about this. I can't keep up. Um, it's died down a lot now, though. It's good because there's not that big influx of people that have come in. It's really sort of died down, and it's that nice area now where, it is you text and there's an instant response. And it's good because the chat is literally about anything. Anything goes. I mean, the girls obviously they've been talking about their blooming Love Island and all that sort of naff stuff as well. That we go over our heads and things like that. But there's been talks from all about our stalls, and even as well about female contraception, and how that may affect fertility, and with Crohn's as well, and how it can react on mood swings and fertility and all sorts of stuff like that. General feelings. We always seem to ask each other what we're going to eat tonight. What triggers us. To the hell with it, we're going to eat it anyway and just suffer later. That we're talking about literally everything you can think of in such a short space of time, and I think that is absolutely amazing. That there's so many people on there that absolutely have no idea who anyone is, and instantly we've talked about so many personal things. Um, so I think that that is just the best bit about it so far. We've got people from Canada, from Chicago in America, and there's just so many diverse people on there already. Barely of us know each other, and I think we've all spoken privately together more than we ever have about any other thing. And I think that's exactly what I'm striving for, is that comfort zone. We've only known each other, for some of us, for 24 hours, but it's literally like we're talking to our best friends. And I think that is the thing what I'm striving and trying to push for most, is just that comfortable, safe zone where we can all just converse and talk about not only our troubles, but things that are happening good as well.
Yeah, and I think that's an important note. It's always nice to have a safe space where you can go and discuss these things. And actually, I think it's such a positive. Even if the discussion does turn negative, the actual fact that you've got somewhere to speak to kindred spirits, I guess, is such a really important thing. And again, it comes back to that sort of almost linking into mental health, because when you struggle with these things on your own, it really can impact your mental health. We talked about it before, but it can lead to the sort of onset at the early stages of like depression or adjustment disorder. Not to put labels on things, but it can certainly have you at that doorway if you don't think you've got someone to talk to about it and feel alone. So would you say now, I know you mentioned earlier about it being somewhere that you don't feel people feel comfortable to really open up on social media. And do you feel that you've hit that now with this group? Am I judging by the discussions that you're having?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I before we had this chat, I put on the group, can you all just sort of give me your feedbacks about what you thought, like any sort of pros and cons on, how this chat has been already. And I had so many responses on there, just on how everyone feels so safe already, and they feel so comfortable with everyone. It's one of them places where you can just come and go. If you need a break, that's fine. Just leave the chat, and then just message me when you next want. I can add you back in. That there's no heart loss anywhere. People need their own time, and people do need space, and they need their own personal time, and that's fine. We all need that, and we all go through it. And I think it's just everyone in there is just so comfortable with the group at the moment. Within the first couple of hours, we was all talking about, just such personal things that you wouldn't even think about saying anywhere else. And I think with that, I was just like, I've hit the nail on the head with this. Like, this is exactly what I was aiming for, because I know that half of them things that have been said wouldn't have been asked on social media in the public eye. I just know it.
Mm.
And yeah, I just really feel like it's been exactly what I was trying to do.
And again, like these are difficult conversations, and I think that's the beauty of it, is that you are able to have them, but have them in a tongue-in-cheek sort of fashion and that's one of the things I do really enjoy about our community. Like the guy, my mate John, who would come on the show fairly frequently, me and him, before I started doing podcasts and things like that, would just sit in the kitchen at work. Whenever he would come down, he would do remote working in our place, and just have poo chats, and we'd just genuinely talk about shit. And it was just like,
Yeah.
it was funny because like we would call it, or we're just having some shit chat, but literally be having that kind of a chat. And it was just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
just swapping stories, comparing, like you said earlier, about like what we can and can't eat. And it surprises me actually, the variation person to person, just from something as simple as diet and like trigger foods. Like I don't really, other than hot, heavy spices, I don't really have that many trigger foods. Although, whether it's my age now or whether it's living life with a J pouch, as you go on, like alcohol and things like that really have a massive impact
Yeah.
with me now, more so than they used to. And I didn't notice it that much when I had an ostomy bag. I felt like when it's an ostomy bag, I just could not get drunk. Whereas I do know other people that have an ostomy and they just get, their hangovers are horrendous because of the dehydration. Whereas I never
Yeah.
really noticed that much. I'd pop like, for people that have got a full bowel, never do this, but I would pop virtually an entire sleeve of Imodium Instance, and that would just sort me right out. Like I wouldn't get dehydrated, but at the same time, for whatever reason, just did not seem to absorb the alcohol.
Yeah.
It's just weird, and like the poo's coming out at that point after a full tab of Imodium Instances were,
Yeah.
wow, wow. That the
Yeah,
bag
that's
needed
facts.
changed. There was no way to empty that bag. The bag just needed changed. But what's the plans for the future then? So we've got our WhatsApp group going, and I think that's amazing and
Yeah.
clearly clearly needed for whatever reasons, be it that current stuff that maybe is already out there not being well publicized enough, or just not providing the service that people seem to want. You've provided something
Yeah.
that is clearly allowing people to connect and break down social barriers, which is brilliant. And I really do applaud you for that. But what events have you got planned for the future? It doesn't have to be specifically about your WhatsApp group, but what is Jack doing, and has this taken you closer to your goals, or are you going off in a different arena for yourself as well?
Yeah, I mean, I've always done a lot of charity work for Crohn's and colitis. Always like doing the old sort of super junky run and going on big sort of mountain runs and stuff like that. I think it was last year or year before maybe. I decided one day I woke up and thought, ah, let's just go and run Snowdon. Um, so I done that. Raised I think it was just over £800 for Crohn's and colitis. I run up and down it. I set myself a time for 4 hours, I think. Went up the pike track, which is the second hardest, and come down the minors, which is the longest. And I think I did the total run in 2 hours and 57 minutes, I think. Um, I do like doing my charity work, and I think obviously dependent on the current climate with how everything is with regards to travel, I definitely want to do Ben Nevis, because I think Snowdon's the second tallest in the UK, and the Nevis is the top. So I definitely want to have a little gander at that and see if I can do a little run of that. And if not, maybe do the Three Peaks. Yeah, I mean, charity work is always a good option for me. Do like doing a charity work, and I think it is just a push on what I can do physically as well and mentally, and just to show myself that I still have got it if I need to pull my finger out. Um, but no, with regards to WhatsApp though, I definitely think I might have to get some tech geeks along the line, um, just to see if there is an option of some sort of platform that we can further enhance this on, because I don't see WhatsApp having that sort of capability of growth in the future. So I think in terms of growing this from a state from what it is now, I think there definitely will have to be some sort of development of some sort of platform or application, something where we can diverse it out to a higher payload as such. It's something that I would definitely be looking into if this keeps growing how it is, 100%.
Yeah, I think it looks like it's got all the right foundations too, certainly. So do you consider yourself a bit of an endurance athlete? You mentioned that you're quite into your charity events, but they all seem to be very sort of long. Three peaks, even just summiting one peak and doing it in a couple of hours
Yeah.
is is pretty good going. Like, is that something you're into? Is that your hobby, or
Oh, I
what do you?
hate running. I can't stand running. I hate it. But it's a different story when you're going up a nice, beautiful mountain with massive valleys. It's a completely different scene then. If you ask me to go out on a jog, I'd tell you to just, yeah, no chance am I going for a jog round little old Lenwade where I live, not a chance. But if you, put me up and against a big mountain, which is more of a challenge, I'll be like, yeah, straight on it. Straight on it. It is a massive struggle to do it though. It's a big physical struggle and a mental struggle as well. All things considered. Um, but I like to push myself, and I like to make myself believe that I can still be really physically active as I was when I was younger. So I like to sort of push myself past some limits. Obviously, I don't do it often because I need to relax. I can't do the things that I used to do. But when I do like to do things, I tend to go out with a bit of a bang, to be honest. And if I'm going to do it, I'll just do it big, and then I'll rest for another whole year until I decide what else I'm going to do.
So there's no pre-training goes into this, is it, or is this just going off and doing it with what you've got in the tank?
Yeah, no. Yeah, I did for my Snowden. I thought, yeah, I will train. And I think I had like one personal trainer lesson, and I had about 5 sessions in the gym, and I was like, yeah, I can't be asked to train anymore. It's too much. And I just thought, I'll just do it on the day. And that's why I set myself a quite high time to do it. It turns out I absolutely smashed that time. So yeah, there's not much training involved because I don't have the energy to do it. It's, I'll just do it on the day when it comes to it and see how I get on. And it went really well. So
I mean, that's a fair one. Like the energy levels are a big thing. Now, what is it? What is your job, or do you mind discussing your job, or is it something you don't?
So I had a few jobs really. Obviously, with it's a funny one. I'm not going to name names of companies, but from my last employer, I did actually get sacked essentially for having too much time off with my disability. So yeah, they dismissed me for that. Funnily enough, right before I was about to have a baby and go on 6 months fully paid paternity leave as well.
Wow.
So yeah, that was a blow. That was my sort of full-time hours job. But that was a big hard hitter for me, and that was during the lockdown as well. So, funnily enough, it all happened over a Zoom call on the computer. So I didn't actually get dismissed face to face. I was in an office and I was on my own. So that work sort of left, and then I do security as well. I used to do it sort of on the weekend from my other job. So I've gone to that full time now, and funnily enough, I'm actually working on a COVID site doing security. So I do 4 on, 4 off, 12-hour days doing that. So I do long days, long hours. But unfortunately, in this current climate, there's not much sort of else going other than frontline jobs. But yeah, I do much work as I can, but I try not to push myself too over the top, which I always do, but I try not to.
Yeah, and I think that's really hard hitting, and over Zoom as well. It's not it just feels very impersonal, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But hopefully things are on the up now, and yeah, it's with your with the baby on the way and everything. That must have been a real. I don't even know how I would describe my emotions with that, but like, did it have significant financial concerns for you guys? Were you like sometimes you can...
I mean, no, I could always pick work up easily because obviously I have a qualification with my SIA badge for security. I can fortunately pick up jobs quite quickly. I started working at a Wetherspoons straight after that, essentially, and that was when that Eat Out to Help Out was on. And I was working there 7 nights a week, so I was straight doing back full-time work doing security. And then we went into another mass lockdown again, so boom, I was then out of another job. So I got 2 blows in one, really. But yeah, so this now, and how funny that is, because ironically, the more that COVID stays around, the more I'm likely to have a job, where it was the opposite just then. So yeah, there was financial concerns, obviously, because I was about to go on 6 months of fully paid paternity leave. But yeah, I make means as much as I can, and I will always make sure that there is money coming in. It's just one of them things that I've got to do. There's always stigma about sort of signing on to benefits and getting personal independent payments and stuff. And when I did have my surgery, I did have to sign on, and I was granted some additional disability money as well. But I hate not working. I like to work. I go a bit stir crazy if I don't work and I'm at home all the time. So as soon as I was physically able to get back to work again after surgery, then I got straight back to it and haven't really looked back since.
Yeah, and I think I feel the same. I don't think I could sit with my feet up. I'm not saying that people do sit with their feet up when they're on disability allowance either. But yeah, I do feel that need to be out of the house and actually doing things. I think that's been one of the struggles for me whenever lockdowns have been quite strict. The nature of my job has been enabled me to actually still be in work for the majority part. But whenever there's been like a few weeks of just being cooped in the house, it's, you know, whenever, like, so the last couple of weeks since this lockdown, I've changed jobs and moved locations, and the need for me to be in the office is less great because I can work from home, but I'm still providing a key service and working. And it's just weird being at home and, like,
Mm.
you know, particularly initially when the kids weren't in school, that was
Yeah.
tough. And I don't know how some people run their own business and homeschool and things like that. Like,
Yeah.
those people are superhumans, really are.
Hmm.
So with your job, you mentioned you were doing quite a lot of nights. How does that affect you? And, like, one of the other things which is interesting for me is, like, a lot of people with Crohn's disease were shielding through lockdowns and stuff, but you were out working, and was
Yeah.
that concern for you?
Yeah.
And then with the hours you're pulling, does that have a detrimental effect? Does it get to a point where you then need to pull the pin and have it a couple of days, or?
I mean, it's funny that you say that because obviously the government or the NHS doesn't seem to think that I need to shield because I didn't have any single contact since lockdown. I didn't have a single letter. I didn't have a single email. I had absolutely nothing regarding shielding. You know, and there's a lot of people who get continuous letters about it. I wasn't contacted once about it. You know, obviously I knew I had to shield. But unfortunately, in the self-employed world, that's not something we can do, regardless of how we do, you know. And it was a big concern, you know, especially working on the front line as well as I am now. It is a big concern. You know, I've got a family at home, and it's one of them things that, you know, I have no immune system, and because I'm on quite heavy medication, I essentially have no immune system. So, you know, I've already had sepsis once, and I don't fancy getting that ill
Oh,
again
yeah.
anytime soon. You know, I caught that. You know, I have my flu jab religiously every year. You know, and I caught that Australian flu. Do you remember when that came around a couple of years ago?
Yeah, that's about two
Um,
years ago, I think now, isn't it?
yeah, I caught that and ended up in hospital with sepsis. I had a condition called fungemia, which is basically I had a fungus growing in my blood cells. So yeah, I was pretty much on death's door with that. But you know, I had 80% chance of mortality, so I pulled through on the 20%. And I think, well, if that didn't kill me, then I'm obviously quite tougher than I think. So yeah, got to get my head down and get the job done.
That's a journey and a half. That really is, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I think that's one of the concerns. I talking to so many people. I just realized how fortunate I have been with my IBD. Like, I've got an indeterminate diagnosis. So it was initially diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, and then had a huge flare up at the start of my 30s, which resulted in having the bowel removed. But the way it was presented, it was all at the top of the large bowel. So the consultant was, well, this is typically how Crohn's would display itself, but it's not. It's not crossed into the small intestine, or it's not visible anywhere else in the tract. So he's given me an indeterminate, but he believes it's Crohn's. So it's weird because I feel like I'm on a time bomb to being like, right, it's now in your small bowel. It's definitely Crohn's, which, like,
Yeah.
fingers crossed it doesn't, and fingers crossed whatever way my body works, I won't get a flare again. But
Yeah.
it does amaze me, like, how susceptible we are to so many different things, and it's not until I started talking, which again is the most important thing about your WhatsApp group, that I discovered how many different things are actually related to autoimmune disease that I've kind of just accepted as just a uniquism to myself, like
Yeah. Yeah.
really itchy skin and things like that. Like, I get really itchy skin, and I wasn't aware. I thought, oh, it's just because showering or product or something, and then I was chatting about it to people, and they're like, no, that's actually, like, you know, part of Crohn's disease or IBD. Some people get this, and I was like, oh, right, okay, and, like, getting weird little rashes and things and stuff, and
Yeah.
just
I mean, I think the symptoms and things like that is just endless.
mm,
Like, I think there's a new thing that comes about every day of what, you know, side effects of things and people have from having an autoimmune disease, and as well medication as well. You know, medication can make it so much worse with regards to side effects. especially chronic fatigue. I think that is a number one thing that a lot of people suffer with is chronic fatigue, just constantly exhausted. And that was a thing that as well led to me getting my diagnosis because I was just tired all
Mm.
the time. I slept for 13, 14, 15 hours at a time sometimes, and then I'll be up for a couple of hours and I'll go have a nap. And I think that is one of the things that you just don't realize. I used to get these sores around my mouth here, and they used to be right in the edges, and turns out they're canker sores, and we all know that it affects anything from right in your mouth all the way down to your bum hole. Anything down that track,
Mm.
anywhere can be affected. And I used to
Oh,
get
because
canker sores really bad.
I get them right in the corner of the
Yeah,
mouth.
canker sores. Yeah, they're canker sores. It dries out and it
Yeah,
cracks. Yeah, yeah,
it
they're
feels like
called
someone tried to
canker
give me a
sores.
Chelsea smile or something there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're canker sores, and that is relating to your Crohn's. Yeah.
And then another one I learned about was the fingernails. Like, so you get these like weird sort of. I've actually weirdly not got any at the minute, but basically the edges of your fingernails can go like
Yeah.
really weird and like constantly have like hangnails and random stuff like that. Which,
Yeah.
but yeah, you're right. It's so far-reaching. It probably doesn't pay to dwell on so many of them, I guess. But yeah, it's like
Yeah.
it makes me wonder. Like, there's no way I could get health insurance. There's no way I could get private healthcare
Nah.
because it's like, what was it? The guy we've got life insurance, obviously. Most people have that. But what was it? I can't remember. I was having a discussion, but basically, I had to then get letters from the doctors, and they had to see my medical notes and everything for the before they would give me life insurance because I had IBD, and then I also had contracted a it was such a cytomegalovirus, which basically you don't get unless you haven't got a suppressed immune system, or you're a child that is like a newborn baby. And I was just like,
Yeah.
it not knocked me for six, but because of that, I'm an IBD. They were like, we need to know in-depth medical knowledge now about you before
Yeah.
we were willing to insure you. And I was like, wow. So basically, they've got a catch out because what I can get if I die from a medical reason, I've every belief that they will relate that to my IBD.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it was like things like arthritis. I can't get a payout for arthritis because that's related to
Yeah.
inflammation, which is related to.
Yeah.
And I was just
Yeah.
like, so like the worst things about getting older.
So I'm paying for nothing, basically.
Yeah.
I'm just.
Unless I get hit by a car, this is worthless.
Yeah. Yeah, unless your chronic fatigue was, stopping you from being able to physically see the
Yeah. Unless you were sleepwalking at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that does blow my mind. It really does. So we've reached a part of the show that I call the Three Truths. And basically, I've rubbed it off a business podcast from a guy called Lewis Howes, and he does it with all of his guests. And I thought, that's really interesting thing to hear from people and just hear different people's perspectives on it. So it's your last days on Earth. For whatever reason, we're not going to say that it's like you're dying or anything. It's just your last days on Earth. Everything you've ever created, so WhatsApp's gone, your Instagram disappears, everything you've ever done socially or interacted with anyone, all forgotten. But you have the opportunity to leave three truths, aka life lessons. And what I put it to you earlier was what three life lessons would you want your son to know if you would disappear today? So if you think about it in that vein, like what would your three truths be?
Be happy. Definitely be happy. That's, even if you fake a smile, it makes you feel happier. It heightens your endorphins, just fake a smile and just try and be happy. Be strong and be willing in anything that you do and be extremely confident in it. And lastly, be healthy. Easier said than done. But be healthy and wealthy in the fact that not only physically but mentally, you know, we're not all here for the longest time in the world. You know, I only sort of figured out that I'm nearly halfway to 50 already, and I thought the other day, God, halfway to 50 nearly. Like, I'm like, it's a quarter of a century I've nearly been living now. Like, where's this time gone? You know, it's just flown by. Yeah, so definitely just, you know, keep strong, be healthy, and be happy.
A mate of mine actually that who does some stuff in the fitness space. He was on live the other night and was talking about a poster he has of dots, and it's basically 80 dots on the wall, and you cross each dot out or you put a stroke through each dot as the years progress. And he's like saying when you get to 30 and start seeing how close you are to 80, because apparently the average lifespan of a
Yeah,
person these days is 80. Um,
yeah,
it's like life disappears quicker than you could ever comprehend.
yeah,
Unless you got a visual clue like that, it doesn't really come home to roost sometimes. I mean, I think about myself and I'm like, I'm halfway to 80 nearly. And I'm like, going, wow, I'm like, the last sort of 10 years, 10, 15 years has evaporated for me. I still remember being 25 and doing athletic tours and things like that, and doing lots of different competing things, and just not thinking that my world was ever going to end, or my world was ever, like, I was probably not even looking
yeah,
more than 1 or 2 years in front of myself. Um, so yeah, it's mad to think now, in the space of 15 years, I've had my bowels removed. I've had 2 kids. I've got married, and I'm about to leave the army in less than 2 years. It's like,
yeah,
this is crazy. This is like everything seems to be coming to a head, much like what you're saying now. Is at
yeah,
25, halfway to 50. It's like, wow, I need to start making some
yeah,
serious plans.
yeah, definitely.
But Jack, I'd just like to appreciate you for a second, just to say, like, thank you so much for coming on and, daring greatly and being brave in sharing your story, but also not just that, in terms of what you're doing within a community space, like identifying where there's potentially a need and creating something to fill that need. In this case, with creating something as simple as a WhatsApp group and engaging with the community and giving them that safe space. I mean, it's such an important aspect, I think, and the response clearly shows that there is a gap there that needed to be filled. And what you're doing is amazing. And at the age of 25, whether you may not think it yet, it's still a very considerably young age. And there's plenty of 40-year-olds, to be fair, but there's plenty of 25-year-olds that are very young 25-year-olds. And it's amazing to see a young man such as yourself that is so forward thinking. And yeah, just really on behalf of our community, thank you so much for everything you're doing, enjoying that awareness and advocating for the disease. And as you mentioned earlier, focusing more on people that aren't part of our community to help actually reduce that stigma, which I never really thought of. And I think that's an eye opener for me. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, thank you as well for the opportunity to come on, and, you know, speak about this, um, what you're doing as well. You know, it's amazing the fact that, even in times like these, we can still have, you know, a face-to-face chat, and open up about things. And I think the way you're going around it is really professional. You know, it's a casual chat, but the whole process is just so good. And I think that the community can be so widespread through doing things like this. You know, it's similar to how my chat is working. You know, this is a personal thing to speak about things, and you know, it's a great reach. And I really do thank you for the opportunity to come on. You know, be able to broadcast this, and just being able to have a chat about it, because I haven't really spoken about it to anyone. You know, in such depth at some points, really. Well, I haven't at all, to be honest. You know, so I do really thank you for the opportunity to sort of speak about my life and all the shit that I go through. So I do appreciate that.
No, mate, it's been incredible. So yeah, once again, thank you so much for coming on, and I really hope that this provides a service that we expect it to, and allows you to do what you feel you want it to do. And I think it's great for our community. And yeah, it's things like this are what drives me forward to keep doing the things that I'm trying to do and just draw that awareness and allow people to share their own story. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and it's been great to chat to Jack, and I'm sure you'll agree it's been an eye-opening discussion with lots of knowledge bombs and a lot more insight into who chronically living CD is, as well as insight into just having IBD and what it is to be part of our community. So we will catch you in the next one, guys. Bye for now.